Hello, I am Filippo Ariani of Azienda USL Toscana Centro. The topic of my speech is the burden of occupational injuries occurred in Italy over the last 140 years. As we all know, the GBD study permits to compare injuries and disease in very different societies. The key point here is that Italy at the beginning of past century was even less different from contemporary Italy than are many other contemporary societies normally included in the GBD study. For this reason, having very detailed data since 1884, we can assess the Italian situation over the whole period. Mean daily for each compensation category have yet been calculated, but the other important information are life expectancy and mean age at injuries necessary to calculate dailies for fatalities and lifelong disabilities. Now we have detailed data only for 1903 and 1924, but this is enough for a preliminary calculation of dailies, not only with the reference to mortality observed at present days, but also on the more realistic hypothesis of concurrent mortality. Another relevant side information is the number of employees in industry, service and agriculture. In the first 40 years for industry, we have complete data only for people insured with Cassa Nazionale, so we need to perform a projection of their mean values to the whole of the industry workers in order to estimate total dailies, as we see here in the black line. Then, after 1930, and here the blue line, INAIL data cover about 80% of industry workers, as we can see here, and after 1980, this part of the line, insurance extend progressively to service sector. What we can see very clearly in the series of incident dailies are the two strong peaks of dailies, this one and this one, in the war years, mainly due to deaths, and in the first 60s with higher component of lifelong disabilities. The weaker point here is the green line here, the agriculture, with very uncertain data before 1930. This is a relevant problem on which we are working, considering that at the beginning of the century there were well over 6 million agriculture workers compared to the only 2 million here in industry. In this fourth dia, we see another approach, those of prevalent dailies instead of incident. More precisely, the graph shows prevalent YLDs only those referred to the burden of disabilities. This indicates a burden of disabilities existent in each period, including those deriving from injuries occurred many years before. The lag is very long, over 40 years, and this hides all short-time dynamics. But in this way we can appreciate the heavy ballast of disabilities that at any time are left to the future. Here we see that already happened injuries will continue to give a prevalent disability burden until 2060. We cannot examine here the more abstract problem of prevalent deaths, a matter that could be maybe studied in connection with economic growth models. Finally, as we have seen, many problems are still open. For instance, we need to estimate the burden for commuting injuries, causing a relevant component of fatalities since the late 60s or 70s. Similarly, we still need to break down the burden into the main industry sector. Nevertheless, this method is a powerful instrument for history of health. In a broader way, a complete range of GBD estimates over past data could be useful for social history in general. Just for instance, the heavy burden of the first 60s, though the so-called years of economic miracle, is a fact. Considering injury burden, we are beginning to assess some cost related to the economic activity. But with a complete burden study, such cost could also be compared to other health aspects, and probably the economic development of those years made also possible health gains in addition to those losses. So, comparing all health dimensions, we could obtain a more comprehensive panorama.